Hello, I'm Dave, and we are back with some exciting sports betting content. And we decided to do some look aheads for the MLB season. I can't believe that the season is upon us. It's 3 days away. We still have March Madness, but holy crap, does time fly. And we wanted to get together and put together some information, some early looks, some bets, some things you should look for in the first week to month of the season, or actually the season as a whole, but just give you sort of a footing to jump off of and put some thoughts in your brain. And what better person to put those thoughts in your brain or to have here on a baseball show than former college athlete, I would say upper level pitching coach, and a guy you really should just look to for advice, because he really does deep dives into very technical things and the physicality of baseball, but also a great handicapper overall. Moose Money Bets. Moose, thanks for being here, buddy.
There's two things. It's Moose loves baseball and Moose loves betting. Moose loves winning. Moose Money Bets. Let's go, Dave. I'm ready to get going, man. How's it going?
I didn't know you had that prepared, but that's nice. I like that.
Off the cuff, off the cuff. That's how I roll.
Was it off the cuff?
Yeah, you got to be ready for everything.
Well, that's right. And we're going to get you guys ready for this baseball season. And it's actually, I would say this, it's not my favorite sport to watch. I like watching it. I like going to a game every once in a while, but it is one of my favorite to cap and to win money. There's just so many angles, if you really want to get into it, that you can exploit. You don't get those in some of the other sports. It's a long season. Some people need some guidance. That's why we're here. But let's jump into it. First thing I want to talk about, or we want to talk about, or you're going to talk mostly about, because I don't do them. Not that you shouldn't, that's just not the way that I bet, but futures. I would say that if I was into the futures game, baseball's probably where I would go. I think I have a good grip on just even in any season in the past to say this team's going to be good, this team's doing this, this is a problem. I think baseball would be it. The only reason I don't do futures is I don't like my money tied up for the long term. But you are a futures guy, and you have some information on that. So I'm just going to give you the floor to run with and tell the folks what they should be doing as far as futures betting this season.
Yeah, the best way to approach this is just like Dave mentioned. First off, you don't get the instant win. Like, you're not going to wake up in the morning and see the money go into your bank account. So you have to be able to have this money put aside. That's the first and foremost thing, is you allocate the resources the right way. There's been plenty of cappers that have talked about resources allocation, money allocation, funds allocation. You have to be able to set that up before you get into any bet, specifically futures. When you're going at it, try to find the unders, because the unders are generally your best bet, because injuries are going to win you that under. If you're taking a player prop on somebody's home run total being under the level and they get injured, they are very unlikely to get to that number that you set and you bet. So make sure that you're trying to first focus off on the unders. And then the side note is you also want to go for the teams that you're just like, I think this is the team that's going to be playing better than expectations. Those will be the two things. Targeting the injuries, trying to find, or not targeting injuries, but targeting numbers that you already like the under on, knowing that they're unlikely to play a full 162 game season. And then also have your side bets on the teams that you just think are going to be better than other people might expect them to be.
Yeah, and that's really, when we talk about futures, I think we're mostly talking about win totals. It's really tough to be or this team to make the playoffs type of thing. It's hard to futures for like World Series futures and stuff. That's the same.
So impossible. Yeah,
it is. It's the same in any sport, I think. But I think with win totals, there's some exploitable ways. And for me in games, like, usually people, I think suckers look at high totals and want to go. This is most sports. I'm talking about basketball, football, this. Suckers see, I shouldn't say suckers. I should see the casual sports bettor that doesn't have the knowledge.
Amateurs.
Well, I don't know. A lot of people, let's just say it that way, will see a high total, like a high basketball total, and think under, when actually you should be thinking the opposite. They see a low total and they think over. And it's actually, I think, you being square and taking a team like the Dodgers to go under. I'm not saying they're going to, but looking at teams that are their win total is high because they're highly touted, or teams like the Pirates in the past or the Orioles that one year that were low. And I think being square in that fashion, taking a low total and going over and taking a high total and going under will work in baseball futures. What do you think?
I think generally in the long run, I think that's a safe approach, but you gotta use reason. Like if you look at the Dodgers this year
I use that as an example. That scares the hell out of me.
But that's the perfect example. That's the perfect example because their win total, I think, is at 109.5. So you're basically putting them on a historic win total that they're going to be 110 plus wins. How likely is that? Look at the lineup. Look at that roster. It's probably pretty likely. There are some question marks that you could easily point to for an under, but the best thing about that bet is you're basically betting on the team to be historic with a lineup that boasts 1, 2, 3 MVP, MVP, MVP. So probably not the worst bet there. That's why I think futures are more served for, like I said, the teams that you think are going to be better than expectations, or vice versa, a team that you think like, I don't get the hype. Like I just don't get it. Like there's hype around the Cardinals. Segue. You're welcome. Cardinals. I see a lot of teams that have them winning the Central. I even see that they are in Vegas odds the most likely team to win the Central. I don't see it. Like I see a rotation that has a ton of question marks, a bullpen that has some question marks, and a lineup that is going to crush lefties, but is very right-handed heavy and has not been consistent for the last year and a half. I took their win total under, and I was teetering on taking their playoffs no, but I just ended up taking the Cardinals win total under at 85.5. And I said, I think they're not a 500 plus team. So I bet the opposite side of that.
What other is that's obviously one you like, or is there any other, before we go to the next topic, is there any other futures that you want to give out?
Yeah, the only team that I said no on the playoffs, because if you're doing that, you have to have some odds that it's kind of like, all right, I just don't think they match up. I don't think the Diamondbacks make the playoffs this year. I'm concerned about their rotation not having a ton of depth. I'm concerned about that bullpen being consistent because it wasn't last year, and that lineup can be pretty thin as well. So I do like them not to make the playoffs. I think the NL is way stronger this year. So them no, and rattling off through the team wins. Orioles over 90.5. Cubs over 84.5. Pirates, one of my favorites, over 72.5. And I also have a 2,500 bet on them to potentially win the Central. We'll talk about them a little bit later. Angels, I'm sorry, Dave, under. I think the expectations on them to be even somewhat decent are way overblown. Phillies wins over, and the Giants wins over. The tough one, real quick, is trying to bet winning streaks, because those are extremely difficult to guess when a team is going to get hot. So you have to look at precedent. Was this team similar to last year? If they were, are they likely to face a stretch where they either face a ton of tough opponents or good opponents? The only ones where I see that being relevant would be the Orioles having a losing streak where they never lose more than five games, and the Padres win streak over 6.5. I think they have a team that, if their bullpen is at least above average, can potentially rattle off 7, 8, 9 wins in a year, which is something they did not do at any point last year.
Well, cool. Well, let's jump in. Let's jump into it's. It's actually kind of a good segue to the next topic, and let's jump into trends. And this is something you brought up, and I'm interested to see your take on it. And I don't know if this is things that you're expecting based on spring training or moves or players, or if this is stuff that you saw last year that you think is going to blow over or flow over into this year. But you had listed things like A's unders, Dodgers overs, Yankees over, like all of these things. We could pick a few of them apart. But first of all, are these trends things that or I guess the question is, should we look at things that were happening at the end of last year and pull them into this year? Because that seems like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, yes and no. You got to pick your spot. The Braves at home in the first game of the series, yeah, I'm going to run that back. I'm going to run that right into this year. The lineup is eerily similar. They have the same home ballpark. None of these ballparks change. You know, they're not playing all of a sudden at a new stadium. There's no new stadiums built. So that's one that I'd pull over. And then there's some new trends this year that's kind of like, well, the Dodgers bullpen just looks like it has a ton of question marks. So I think that their overs are going to be hitting and that Vegas is going to have to adjust because Vegas is planning on the Dodgers shutting out opponents. They're going to have to adjust to them allowing runs. How long does that take? I don't know. But I think the first thing you can jump on are probably Dodger overs. I'm already looking at the Dodgers over against the Cardinals in the first game. I'm already looking at it.
Yeah. Speaking about the Dodgers, I knew coming in my mind, and it's already come to fruition the first 2 games of the season. And it kind of doesn't matter who they're going against because this is a historic lineup. I mean, I can't remember. You have to go back to the Yankees for me to remember a lineup this good, or maybe like the 04 Red Sox or something like that. But either way, I team total overs. But now Yamamoto shit in the bed the first game. I mean, I'm with you. I think after watching those 2 games and especially the second game with their bullpen, even though we're talking about the Padres bullpen being bad, but back to the Dodgers are going to give up some runs. I think, anyway, I think that's a good one. I like that one a lot. So talking about teams specifically, what team should we be looking at early in the season, or who are you looking at early in the season?
The first one is the Rays have been like ridiculous at the first half of the season. I remember last year, like when they went like 27-3 or something like that to start the year. They have generally come out the gates firing, and that's why a lot of the futures that we talk about, like if you're going to do a divisional bet, sometimes you just wait. You look at the season. Like I'm looking at the Cubs. Like, I want to grab the Cubs to win the NL Central, but I'm going to wait because I look at their schedule early on. And it is brutal. I mean, it's like the Dodgers come into town. They play the Padres. They play basically the NL West. They play the Cardinals. Which is always going to be tough. The Cubs playing the Cardinals for either side is always going to be tough because of that rivalry. But their schedule is brutal. So you wait on them. I think that the Padres, who have generally been a team that plays better in the first half than they do after right around the All-Star break, they would be a team that's always good. And you know what team has, for whatever reason, the first week and a half of the season played exceptionally well is the Rockies. The Rockies, for whatever reason. Remember last year in Texas? They went out and like almost swept the Rangers right in their ballpark. So the Rockies are also a team that early on in the season sometimes come out and nip you because Bud Black is a good manager and he has that team prepared for the first week of the season. So those would be some of the teams that I would try to be on early in the year, the Padres, the Rays, and the Rockies, just because they generally tend to play their best ball right around opening week, opening day, opening series.
All right, let's go on the other side. Which teams are we fading?
I think there's a few teams you can kind of fade here. But the Angels would be more of my fade for like all year. But the Diamondbacks have a brutal schedule coming right out the gate. I think their second series is against the Diamondbacks, and they travel to San Diego, and then they play the Dodgers again. So there's a very difficult schedule for the Diamondbacks. So I think that's a team that you're probably going to see battle tested. And generally, this hasn't been so true the last couple years in sports, but the team that loses in the last game of the year, the championship game, there's generally a hangover to it. And they don't come out the gate strong. And it's up to their mentality and their moxie to come out of their little slump. Will the Diamondbacks be able to do that in the division with the Dodgers? I don't know. But I think the Diamondbacks schedule early on, and given the fact that there's a whole hangover and there's a target on their back, I think that's another team you can target early on in the year.
The Diamondbacks remind me a lot of FAU in the tournament last year. I think, and this is what people that don't look at trends and streaks and things, like the Diamondbacks just played. I mean, what team played better? What team played better in the playoffs and them above expectation? It was them. FAU was the same way. I lost a lot of money betting against the Diamondbacks. I'm not to say they're not a good team, not to say that they have some great pitching and a couple great. I mean, we're talking Cy Young-esque pitchers, and we're talking potentially MVP candidate type players on the field. However, the team chemistry compared to other teams and how they're put together, I could definitely see them not making the playoffs 100%. I like that look. But let's flip flop on for teams to fade. We mentioned teams that we think aren't going to perform, that are expected not to perform. But let's talk about teams that are usually overvalued. Are we trying to fade? Because I'm a big plus money guy in the beginning of this. I try to find spots with the crummy teams, or what we see as crummy teams. Are we trying to fade the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Braves? Are we trying to do that, or are there
one team?
You know,
one team I am trying to fade, and I'm trying to attack early because I think there's going to be adjustment, and I think that's the Yankees. I think the Yankees is absolutely that team. First off, huge question marks about their starting rotation. Huge question marks. Rodon's velocity is down to 91 miles an hour. I mean, he is barely above speed limit on the on the 8 out there between us there, Dave. Out in that long stretch, where it's 80 mile an hour speed limit out there. He's barely above that.
Yeah.
Their bullpen does have some question marks. I mean, besides Holmes, there's some question marks out there. Johnny Lasagna, is he gonna be the guy that he was at stretches? I don't know, but I definitely think they are. And I didn't bet it just because if they get healthy and they figure it out with that lineup, they can just run the table on teams and they can just sweep series. But until they prove that, I think that's the team that if I'm looking at all those mega teams that are out there between the Dodgers and the Braves and the Phillies and the Yankees are the team that I'm looking at and go, I got my eye on you. I'm going after you, big boy. I'm going after you.
Yeah, I think for me, early on, I'm going to be looking to fade all of them. I think eventually, I think besides Dodgers are on the team, but tried and true, I think the Braves are the best team in the NL. And they're one of the best teams in baseball. So I think the Yankees, just like every year, are going to be overvalued. Garrett Cole. I never liked the guy. I guess I shouldn't root for injury, but I get it. He's a butthole. But yeah, the Yankees are still going to be overvalued, and every time they're a minus 130 fave or more, I'm going to look to fade them. That's how low drop down I am, and I really kind of don't care what the team is. Especially if they're a minus 130 fave against a crummy team, that's the book telling you something. But either way, let's talk about specific players. Talking about breakout players you think are going to do well. Let's jump into that because I know you have some opinions.
Yeah, I think that there's a couple players coming back that the baseball world hasn't really acknowledged that they can be an impact player. The number one guy that comes to my mind is O'Neal Cruz. I mean, he was beloved when he was coming up through the Pirates organization. There was like a countdown ticker. I mean, I'm not even good. Like, there's a countdown ticker, like counting the days until O'Neal Cruz is going to be a big leaguer, just waiting for him to come up. And now he's just like, oh, he's done. Like, come on. He could be one of the best players in baseball. He has that Ellie De La Cruz type mentality, or not mentality. He's got that same approach. He's got that same kind of energy. I think that he's a complete game changer. He could absolutely be one of the reasons why the Pirates end up winning that division and potentially run way over the total that I see their team total at. So O'Neal Cruz, first guy that comes to my mind, just a guy that I'm like, man, really think he's going to be bouncing back. And I already mentioned him, Rodon. There was the belief that when he signs, like, oh, that was a 1-year thing. No, his velocity is still, it is going down.
What about Hunter Green? Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what about Hunter Green? Is this finally going to be we know the dude has legit stuff. It just looks, he's either too wild or whatever the case may be. Is this going to be the year where he figures it out? He's 3 years in now, I think.
I do. I think it's going to be this year. I do think it's going to be this year. I think there were flashes last year. And what I like from a young pitcher is that they continue to show those flashes. Like, that's, as a pitching coach, I love when a guy shows flashes throughout the year, because all you tell them in the offseason is, dude, you are so close. Like, you are right there. If you can just figure out how to keep your body ready each and every start, you are going to be a monster. And I think he's right there. Did it look like he had figured it out in spring? No, it did not. He still showed inconsistency. But if he shows that he can be the guy that we think he can be, and he has that stuff, when he was on last year, he was virtually unhittable. There were games where he had, given up 2 base runners and struck out 10 guys. There was a start against the Braves where he went 6 innings, 4 hits, like 8, 9 strikeouts. Is that possible? I think that's more on the likely side than it is the unlikely side.
So I'm just doing some math real quick to look. I mean, we know the dude can strike out people like no one's business. 237. That's how many and then multiply that by 9. I mean, he's got his walks are at about 3.75 per 9. It's a little too high. His ERA is in the mid 4s, not good. He's there, and everyone's talking about it. I just think it's interesting because everyone talks about him. It's his 3rd year in. If he performs the same as last year, then we kind of know maybe.
Well, to one point, I don't know if he had a dinner or a coffee with Blake Snell, but Hunter Green and Blake Snell are 2 of the prime examples of guys that'll just nibble on the corners with elite stuff. They have elite stuff. Just go, just throw. Like, you want to throw a curveball, just throw the damn curveball. Like, I really don't care where you throw it. Just throw the curveball, because your stuff is so good that you can still miss and you can still induce swings and misses. You can still get called strikes. They nibble. And that's what Hunter Green's biggest problem is whether it's because of his control or whether it's just his approach. But he misses the zone, and he doesn't miss by a lot. Like, he'll miss by a few inches, maybe a foot at the most, which I get is a lot, but still, like, he's not missing by a ton.
Yeah,
and Blake Snell's
Blake Snell's a great example, because except for 2018 and last year, his numbers, even though he has stuff, were mediocre at best. He's had a mediocre career except for 2 years where he blasted people. Blake Snell's a very frustrating guy to me to bet. But either way, on to, and you've already talked about Rodon. We can talk about him a little bit more, but let's talk about people we want to stay away from, we want to fade.
First guy comes to mind, and I've posted this on Twitter a few times.
We have a little pause in the action from Moose Money Bets. We'll give him a couple seconds here. If he doesn't, we'll shut this down. We already got quite a bit of knowledge from the Moose Man. Some really, really good looks. And if you don't follow this guy, you don't follow him on Twitter or anytime he's on screen, you should, because he really dives in technically. He gets into spin rate and velocity and really breaks it down from the pitching level, which, as you guys should know, is the starting spot to betting. And he's back. Do we have you here?
Yeah. Sorry, my internet decided to do a quick refresh.
No problem. Let get back on track. Let's talk about players that we want to avoid.
Yeah, the first guy would be Joe Musgrove. I posted it on Twitter a few times. Like, I'm not sure how much of that got out, but when you see a guy that is opening early and his curveball is flattening out, generally that means he's either A, tired, which I know in spring training, if you're seeing that, that's probably not the case, or B, he's injured. And that's kind of what I was thinking for the early parts of spring training, watching him, is that curveball is flattening out. His velocity doesn't look like it's really all that impressive. The ball's not moving the way you'd think a guy that.
Did we lose him again? Either way, I agree with Joe Musgrove for sure. Joe Musgrove hasn't been the same since he had that goo on his finger 2 or 3 years. But let's do this. We've given out a lot of information. We're going to go ahead and shut down. That was the last topic either way. I hope you guys have gotten a little piece of information or pieces of information so you can go forward and make. I'm just going to shut this down. We're bouncing in and out. You're back. But either way, Moose, thanks for coming on. Let's see if we can get this in before you freeze. Where can the people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. I apologize. The internet is just kind of going in and out here for whatever reason. But you guys can find me on Twitter. Obviously, there's a lot to talk about here. And if you have any questions, dude, please reach out. I love talking baseball. One of the reasons I'm urging Dave to do all this is because I have this itch to talk more baseball, and he's given me the back scratcher that I might need to do that. So please reach out to me, ask me any questions you have. I think we might try to do this again going over some of the bets we have for opening day. And more than anything, Dave, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to discuss baseball. I love talking baseball.
No, I need to thank you. Thank you so much. We will do this again. We're going to do a lot more pre-recorded work. Kind of doing a little less live, a little more pre-recorded. But thanks, guys, for viewing. Best of luck in your bets. Reach out to Moose Money Bets. Reach out to Picks from Dave on Twitter. I'm giving out free content, free plays. I also have premium plays as well. But reach out. We answer our DMs. Thanks so much.